As we saw in the previous class, we have now the capability directly from the user interface to create clients for our RESTful API. So what we are going to do during this class is to use this client in order to obtain an access token, but we are going to do this in a different way. Now we are going to learn about the authorization code grant type. So you need to be very careful and pay very much attention here, because this grant type is not complicated but it's a little tricky. So I'm going to explain you how is the flow execution of the authorization code grant type, and of course I will show you this. So here we need to be careful with two different roles. One is the client, that is basically the program or the person, the computer, whatever that you can name this, that is requesting data from the RESTful API. And the other one is, well, the RESTful API. So the authorization code grant type is like this. You want to obtain an access token from the RESTful API. You are the client, okay? So to obtain the access token, you cannot obtain the username and the password, because that values can be only specified by the user directly in the RESTful API. So to obtain the access token, you have no access to that information. What you do so is to go directly to the RESTful API that provides you a login web page. Then the user log in and authorize your client application to obtain access to its information. After that, you obtain not an access token, you obtain an authorization code. Then, using that authorization code, you can finally obtain an access token. If you are wondering why we need to do all these things, is that basically in that way the RESTful API doesn't need to trust in you as client for the user credentials. The RESTful API itself is taking care of authenticate and validate the user information for you and provide you the appropriate authorization. So let's do it really easy. So imagine that we are the client. So we need to perform a request to the RESTful API to provide us a way to authenticate the user, not by itself, but from the API itself. So we are going to do this directly in the browser, and the request should be something like this. We need to go to restfulapi.dev, and once there, we need to send a request to the authorized endpoint. This endpoint receives directly in the URL, it means a GET request, the client ID. So as we are going to use the client ID for the user that we created in the previous class, that is going to be the number 6. Then we need to specify the redirect URI. That must be the same that you specify when you created your client. And finally, you need to specify the response type. That is going to be code, because you need an authorization code. So let's execute this in an incognito session. To be done, to don't have an active session. It seems like I have a little typo here. It is just authorize. So after that, we just need to log in. I'm going to use the same user. It is perfectly possible. Of course, you can use whatever other user if you prefer, or create a new one in fact. Just log in and authorize. So once we authorize, it is going to redirect you to the redirect URI that you specify. That is, in this case, localhost. Of course, that could be any other different thing. Now, in the response, the most important part is the code that you have here. But you need to be very careful with this code because this code has been encoded as a URL because, well, it is directly in the URL, so probably you need to encode this to avoid any kind of inconsistency. So what we are going to do is just use a URL decode tool online. You can use whatever that you prefer and paste the code there. Be careful to paste only the code, not the part of the URL and the parameter. Then you need to decode that value and there you can copy the decoded value. Now, it is the real and original code, so you just need to use that code in order to obtain a valid access token. So we can do that directly in Postman now. To obtain an access token, we just need to go to the regular endpoint that is OAuth token. And in the body, because it is a post request as usual, we need to specify the client ID, that is the number 6, the client secret that we are going to obtain later, the redirect URI, and the authorization code. So let's to paste here the authorization code and let's to obtain the client secret. So again, you just need to copy this from here, from your clients list, paste it here, and the redirect URI is used localhost. It is very important that the redirect URI match every time that you are using in every other request. So we just need to send. And as you can see, I just missed to include the grants type that is going to be just authorization code. Once we have this, we can see that we have a valid access token and a refresh token. So we can use this access token in order to obtain access to any other endpoint. So let's use it, for example, to obtain the list of users. If we send nothing, it is going to be unauthorized, but if we send the authorization code, with the access token, of course, in fact, we can see how we are obtaining access. Now, finally, if we check our authorized clients, we can see that it is registered dead because remember that we provide authorization for this client. In fact, it's our own client. And in fact, we can revoke this at any moment. So if we revoked right now, we can see that if we try to use again this access token, it is not going to work anymore because, well, the client has been just revoked. So once we have this, we completely understand how to use the more traditional grants type for the OAuth flow, and we can proceed to the next class. So see you there.